Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank everyone for attending today. Very honored, actually. So to do this, the 4 for learning systems, 23, 24 to kind of talk about it. And I'm also going to hit briefly on one thing, which I've not written about, haven't written about any of these for the most part. Okay, I'm an idiot. Okay, while that's going on, the thing is that, and it's right about change. What I see with learning and development is that learning and development has got 2 approaches. I'm not saying here in the audience though, is that I'm stuck in a rut and I'm not going to change, and I'm all about assigned learning, and I'm all about focusing on the job role. And if you've got the skills, maybe you get another job role in the company. And really, how many of them actually make that mobility move? Because if I'm a department head and I don't like that employee, you can forget about those skills, getting them in there. If I don't, we have a difference of opinion, right? There's all these other factors involved. And so what you need to think about is to say, for people that are not in L&D, I used to run training at companies. And one of the things that always bothers me with learning system vendors and content providers and learning technology tools and, in e-learning is they think everybody's L&D. And it drives me nuts. And I constantly, it's a big peeve of mine. And when I have calls with them, I'm like, there's L&D and there's training, and they're 2 different modalities and 2 different approaches. And anybody in L&D can tell you that, and anybody training can tell you that. And the old joke is nobody wants to work under HR. And so, when you're looking at that, what I recognize is that L&D has to adapt and include training. You have to do that. In 23 and 24 and 25 and everything going on, you need to be able to do that. And that's where I'm going to get into here on this piece, because it's all going to be about personal and professional skills. And anybody that's into this assigned learning thing, I'm going to tell you right now, drop it. Nobody likes to do assigned learning, right? You didn't like it in school. If you went to university, you definitely didn't like it. I never saw anybody like, this is the greatest thing ever. Nobody likes it. Yes, do it for compliance, do it for regulatory, do it for safety. But let's be realistic. People wait at the end, they take it, you never see them again. That's a reactive approach, right? So a company doesn't get sued. That's all it is. And when you assign somebody of saying, look, I've got to do this job role because you're assigned to these skills and you're this, give me a break. Who wants to do that, right? And when you do repetitive around assigned learning, are you really benefiting? Think about yourself. How many times does somebody say, take out the garbage, take out the garbage, take out the garbage when you're a kid? And you think, my God, I don't want to take out the garbage because God's telling me to take out the garbage. Same way, we're adults, right? And I think that one of the things I notice often is we have taken learning from a perspective. Why is it there's only really one thing as we've moved through time is learning. We're using the same methodologies in learning since the 1700s, the exact same as it comes to ed tech and K-12 and higher education. They've not changed. And so if they're not changing, then you get into, that's where you all learn, correct? So you're learning that, you come into this, and that's where training is like, hold a minute, let's focus on personal and professional skills as the key thing. Sure, you can learn how to make widgets, but let's give you all those other things. And so that's going to be kind of hitting upon it. So right here. Okay. Okay. So, oh, okay. I'm looking here, but I got it. Can't stand looking at that. All right. So focus on reskilling and upskilling. Reskilling is the key here. I understand about, yes, you want to upskill people and get these and find skills that they're interested in, not what you're forcing them to be interested in. Because if I'm interested in something, I am going to learn it. If I'm not interested in something, I'm not going to remember it. And at the end of the day, what you want is synthesis. Too many systems and too many people focus on retention and that's nothing. Yeah, I have retention and comprehension about antiquities, but what am I synthesizing that? Synthesizing is taking that skill, being able to apply it and able to build upon it. And that's what you want. Reskilling is a must. And I'm going to be hitting a lot around generative AI, but the people that are going to lose their jobs, blue collar workers, it's going to be a massive impact. White collar professionals, massive impact. Recruiters, gone. Marketing, low level, gone. Programmers, unless they switch over and learn about generative AI, gone. And the list goes on. Executive assistants, secretaries, gone. And, so when you're looking at cost reduction, that's where it's going to hit. And for L&D, you have to, right? L&D and training people, we love telling other people, yeah, train, and then we don't do it ourselves. And you need to learn these new skill sets, because wait till you hear what some generative AI programs today can do. So you're talking about redundancy. Programmers need to be reskilled and overview and overseen by, in terms of what I mean by saying that I'm a programmer today. I do Python. Okay, what do I need you for in a year? Generative AI, depending on how it is. And by the way, the term that you hear, chat GBT, and now it's auto GBT, which is GPT-4, that is what's called a learning language model. I'm not going to go into like the specifics and bore you with that, but that's what it's called. And so these programmers are going to need to become software engineers around learning language models and learning the skills around that in order to maintain them, in order to update them with data sets and to build on that, right? So that's going to be a skill set that needs to be acquired. That's number one. And onboarding, a different tactic to empower the skills and update. So we can't just be looking at onboarding of, hey, I'm going to onboard you and I'm going to train you on this and that. You need to include personal and professional skills and get them right out of the gate. You need to explain around generative AI and have courses around AI ethics and what is the different types of generative thing. Because I just saw a study out of Australia, 17% today of their workforce is using ChatGPT as part of their job, 17%, and that's only going to grow. And another study I just saw last night, done by resumebuilder.com, they did a survey of about 1,800 companies, and 91% said that in the future, not only are they going to support generative AI and include that, but that they're going to be looking for people that have certain skills around generative AI as sort of the key. And they recognize, 53% recognize that it's going to cause people to lose their job. Learning analytics is the second thing. This drives me nuts. There are so many learning systems out there today, and that includes learning platform, LMS, LXP, whatever somebody wants. I like it when people go, I call all my systems an employee engagement platform. Really? Who's typing that into a search engine? Nobody's sitting around a boardroom. Guy, I need an, So the thing is that segmentation is crucial. You need to know the analytics. When I look on the analytics of whatever system I'm looking at, that should tell me my learning story. If you can't figure out that learning story, then your analytics are ineffective. And the days of where back in the days of the early 2000s, systems would do that. They could segment a course, a chapter, a page. They could tell you specifically that learner went to that page 25 times, not the, I went into it and you don't know where they went into the course. Completed drives me nuts. Completed tells me nothing. Views, I'm not a search engine. What does that mean? It means nothing. And vendors just seem to enjoy this as some type of recognition, or they have these little kind of charts and you're trying to figure out what that is. I should be able to segment this. The more detail, the more data you have, you're going to be more successful. LMSs were created. This is the truth. They were created for analytics and courses, because instructor-led training, and I know there's people that are proponents, that's fine. I'm not. I think it's dated, but instructor-led training has flaws. And one of them is those evaluation forums that everybody always gives 4s and 5. You don't even know what that means. I may not like you. I don't like you. I mean, I had one time, I didn't like the guy's tie. Okay, that's a 2. People complain about the food, right? And the temperature. And you're sitting there and you're putting, Likert scale statements. That doesn't tell me anything. I have no idea what you really know, what you don't know. I have no idea on whether or not you're actually understanding the information, right? You're being driven by me. So the analytics is where this came into. That's what they were created for. That's it. And at the end of the day, a client can choose, right? You can choose whatever you want to do. You want to make a silent fine, you can do that. You could do informal learning with them. So it all comes back to these learning analytics. And that's what I say, go back to your system, whatever you're using, if you're using Journey or whatever, and look at the analytics and say, can it tell me my learning story? Do I know what is going on with my learners right now? Can I identify the skills that they know? Where are the gaps? Where are the weaknesses? It is your responsibility. You've been hired as an expert, right, at your companies versus somebody else, which means you have to use your brain. You have to extrapolate the data and figure it out. There is a big drive in the industry today around automation, which people like. And there is a big drive. Again, I'm not saying you, but there are plenty of people in L&D and training and everything else that they look at those analytics and they decide that's my job. So I don't really have to think, because look, here's the analytics, and it doesn't tell you anything. I can look at analytics. That's one of the first things I look at when I ask a learning system. I always say, I want to see your analytics, and I want to know what the segmentation is, because it matters. And by the way, there was a thing about customer training and the analytics. My God. The majority of people that do customer training or work at associations, you're doing it to make money. If you're doing it as a value add to retain the customer, that's money, right? You want to retain that customer. So analytics matters. I want to know what's selling, what's not selling. I want to know what's popular, what's not popular. If I've created content and it's not popular, I'm not making money, get rid of it. If they're making money, make more of those and create more of those and see where people are. So you have chapters. We've gotten away from instructional design. We've gotten away from doing chapter page lessons. We're big into rapid content authoring tools. The premise was very simple. I can grab anybody off the street and create a course in like 2 minutes. Doesn't mean it's good. It's like micro learning. Everybody's around that was around in 2000. That's not new. All that means is short. Doesn't mean good. So, that's what you look like. An example, I've done customer trading. I generated close to $1 million in less than 9 months. It can be done. And I wasn't price gouging people either. So the analytics becomes very relevant in terms of what your actual cost is, what you can charge. I see people charge astronomical numbers. You don't need that. You can do a blue ocean strategy. I'm more happy to show you what that is separately. That's what I did. And I made that money. So it's very possible to do that. And the customer loves it. It's all about keeping the customer, this in case with software training, keep them and get them to buy the product. If you currently have like an MRI machine or something, then you buy third-party content, you give it to them for free, right? You can't resell that. You give it to them for free to benefit them. That's your value add, because the competitor's not doing that. And there's so many people that need this stuff. Generative AI, my God. This is the hottest thing, as you can imagine. And most people just say AI. So when a vendor says AI in their system, they're probably talking about machine learning, unless they specify generative AI. And I've seen a couple of products just in the last week before I came here, and they were talking about, and I had to ask them, we have generative AI, and one was using GPT-4, which is now called Auto GPT. and somebody else was and they were kind of showing about extrapolation of the data, the data, and one of them talked about where I saw it, and it just, you have to be very specific, no ambiguity with these kind of questions. Can't do it. You'll get like weird answers, and you can't trust 100% of this stuff, and people are going to trust 100% of whatever comes out of here. You're going to get plagiarism. You're going to get everything. I was just talking earlier that they had something where somebody asked a question about Hitler, and it responded that he was a great orator and speaker. And I mean, it was nuts of what's coming out here. So generative AI, we'll talk, we can happy to talk about later. The big thing with learning system vendors is too many are going to jump in there. They're going to do it with one learning language model. You need to have at least two in order to be sufficient. And then the last thing, is dealing with content drives. It's got to be interactive, engaging. It can't be static. Who wants to read all text? I'll tell you who's going to read it. Nobody. And they're going to bounce right through there. And you're going to have a little video. Who's watching the entire video? Nobody. It reminds me of, when you used to get hired and they stick you in the room, for people that remember, a little bit older, and they'd shove in a VHS tape and they'd walk out the door and you're like, I'm not watching that, and you're staring off into the windows or reading, before smartphones, you're reading that kind of thing. So for me, the biggest thing is you have to add real world, real life scenarios. Get away from everything else. Adults always want to know what's in it for me. I'm going to take you. I'm going to put you in a real life scenario. I can do it within a course. Heck, I could do it with one of the rapid learning authoring tools. But, I do that. And now I put you into that situation. And you have to do deep thinking and probe thinking and make it more challenging, which is what generative AI can't do. And that's how you get these open-ended questions. And there's no right or wrong answer here. And you take the information that they're gathering and learning, and they go back as much as they want, as often as they want. That's why web-based training was created. It was to go as much as you want, as often as you want, because you want them to build those skills. You don't want it to be one time and you go out the window. And that's what I'm saying. Short doesn't mean good. And what does duration mean? It means nothing. It means nothing. That is a methodology from EdTech, because that's the way we've learned. What takes you 5 minutes may take me 9 hours, right? It's all about what I can incorporate and retain and remember and then synthesize. So whenever I see duration, I'm like, who came up with this? And I'll hear like, oh, it came from Harvard and Stanford. Who cares? That means nothing to me. They're great, word names. So thank you very much. And I'm so glad that you attended. Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much, Craig, once again for coming all the way from the US and sharing with us your knowledge, which is for us in the Israeli ecosystem is an amazing opportunity to be exposed to. So, but stay here. The next session will be led by Dr. Eran Gal. Will be a Q&A session with you. So please, Eran Gal, you can come up. We have another microphone, Ron. איפה? אני רואה, סבבה. This is for you.
Thank you.
You can hear? Yeah.
By the way, I learned one of my first important words. Sabala?
Sababa.
Sababa. So, all right, never mind. I thought I was on a roll.
No.
Forget about it. So
Sababa is great. Just add
that's right.
Achla. Achla Sababa.
Achla Sababa.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. You can ask me anything. Achla Sababa. I'll be fine.
Can I overcharge you on the room in the hotel? Achla Sababa.
Achla Sababa. Yeah. What do I care?
So, first of all, thank you, Juno, for setting this up. It's a great opportunity. And we have here Craig Weiss. I've been following you, I think, for more than 10 years and love your prediction about L&D market, L&D systems. So I have some questions. We'll try and get for, I hope, three of the questions. Some was suggested by the audience here, some I wrote, and some GPT wrote. The best questions were written by our friend GPT. So first of all, let's try and look into the future. Let's say, what's going to be our hottest topic that we as L&D are going to speak about 5 or 10 years from now? And what do we need to do today to be relevant in 5 or more or 10 years into the future?
Sure. It's a pretty short and simple answer. We're not going to know in 5 or 10 years from now, to be honest. I can tell you unequivocally that it's generative AI by far. The impact of generative AI, I believe, when we look as a society as a whole, it matches the Industrial Revolution in terms of it's going to be impact, which is astronomical. And in terms of learning technology, it's the internet and modems, because that's where e-learning came from. Before those things, and if you're younger, you don't remember 2400 baud modems, which was, dial up. It was, and we thought it was the greatest thing ever. So that's where the technology is going to be around generative AI. It's going to be around what I call AI auto agents. They're called AI agents, which is where they can perform the tasks to go ahead and do these things, and you don't have to do prompts, right? So it's totally enhanced on these kind of things. And I think that the approach that you need to take is when you're out of here, and if your company is planning to use generative AI, is that you need to create AI ethics courses, you need to create AI privacy courses, you need to create content around whatever is being used in your company to provide your employees so that they know, because they're going to incorporate it. And if I add, if I upload enough financial spreadsheets, right, not just one, multiples, it's going to be able to output a financial spreadsheet. And it's going to, if I don't put the numbers in it, it's going to make up numbers. So there's no cut and paste here. You have to know these numbers. And these are the big kinds of things that you have to look upon. And it's going to be widespread. I mean, today, we're really at baby stage. I know it's hard to believe it. We're really at baby stage with generative AI. And today there's over 1,000 tools available around generative AI to give you perspective. And there are plenty in learning technology that are going to impact. I think that from a learning technology standpoint, probably 40% will fail, be around short and then fail. They'll be ineffective, but you're going to buy it. And that's, I think, a big issue, is just buying unseen, not knowing. And my thing going forward is to say, here, I'm going to tell you what you need to know, what the impact's going to be, and how you need to change, not just your employees, but yourselves, because anybody with generative AI, as the technology, is redundant. That is its power. And besides, being sued and everything else, but that's its power that you have to look upon.
שומעים למעלה? הם שומעים. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so I'll try and be. There are lots of people up there. Let's move into a place where you write a lot about, and that's the LMS, LXP landscape. If I am to look, I'm looking for a system right now, upgrading or a new system, what would be the 3 most important features that I want to look into a system when considering buying it today, and maybe what would be the next, if you can look 2 or 3 years in advance, what are going to be the most needed features in learning systems?
The first is going to be metrics and the analytics. And I'm going to go back to generative AI because it's going to be able to produce, it should be able to produce more effective analytics. That's going to be better. So that's number 1. Number 2 is going to be around, I think, cohort based. Can that be incorporated? Because you can create generative AI that acts like a human, like a junior associate, and I would just use it from that. I wouldn't actually be having it like as an in-depth conversation and helping drive my cohort, and then being able to share the content. So, this is very clear to me. And then number three, the most important feature, it comes down to two pieces. If I'm doing customer training, it has to have a slick, modern UI and UX. It's crucial. You got one shot to get these people. And if it doesn't look like it, it ain't going to work. And on the other side of the employee piece, I still think you have to have the slick UI UX because that's their expectation. You need to have functionality that I call next gen. It goes beyond what is current that everybody else has. So you have to find sort of a sweet spot to go into it. And I would point something that's not in terms of the technology. You got to make sure about that support. RFPs I see all the time, they don't ask questions about support. It's the number one reason why people leave systems and hate them. And they don't ask the right questions. And so then they get stuck. And, the thing that's going to impact the market is pricing. It's out of control. And there are vendors that manipulate pricing. And so you think you're getting, and so these are, I would say, the big factors that when you look for your next system, don't look at a term like LXP, because what vendors are using it today is not what it was actually for. And so anybody can say, well, I've got a content marketplace. Well, I had that in 2000. Well, that's an LXP. Don't you understand? I have a content marketplace. I've got a playlist. I'm an LXP. No, you're not an LXP. You just have a playlist and you have a content marketplace. So you're going to get confused and there's going to be more acronyms and more everything else. But at the end of the day, you should look upon a system and say to yourself, how is this not just going to benefit my learner, but you start to think as the learner. And if you don't think this thing is rocking as a learner, then why are you buying it in the first place? Features and functionality are only as good as how you utilize them as tools in your learning.
How much time do you have? One more question? Oh, so two more questions, I hope. So let's talk about L&D managers, right? And I'm touching into what Dor said at the beginning, that we're moving to times of uncertainty here in Israel and all around the world. And one of the questions that we got from the community, we asked people to suggest questions on Facebook, was how do we retain or even upgrade our value in the organization as L&D managers, especially in this time of uncertainty, moving forward, maybe even a recession?
Sure. And it's happening globally. I mean, when there's a recession or perceived recession, the first four departments that get cut in any size of company is L&D, training, marketing for some reason, and HR. And there are people in L&D being gutted, and then it falls on whoever to oversee that. I think that from an L&D standpoint, what you look about is forget about ROI. Everybody knows that's manipulated. How can you? Well, I increase productivity. Okay, where's the number? I don't know. I didn't look. They're happy. So you have to look on what I call IOL, which is impact of learning. Impact of learning, this is where that value comes in. And you find out the company's goals and objectives for the year. Then you tie your learning to those goals and objectives. And then you can show you actual metrics. And that's why it gets back about the metrics of the thing. If I can say to you, oh, your goal is to, reduce safety accidents. Okay, look. I have a metric here that shows that it reduced by 32%. If I'm doing customer training, I guarantee if you're making money, they're going to keep you, right? And they're going to give you whatever. You're not going to have to fight for a budget line item. When I did that close to $1 million, my budget became whatever I wanted, right? Generating revenue is a reality. And so when you're looking at the cost, you have to say, look, the cost for, just like, Dor said, the cost for retraining an employee, this is what it costs. This is the aspect. And if you can say to them, when they've got generative AI, because they're going to put it in their companies, and some of them are going to try to build their own algorithm that's going to go all over the map. And you say, you know what? I've trained my people and more people know about ChatGPT, and they're gaining this acquired knowledge, and they're going to be able to be more productive. Well, they're looking today. Prompt engineers is a brand new job. It just came out. You don't have to have a programming skill set. What you do is you have to be analytical. You have to be able to be adaptable in your brain, and you have to be able to do word construction. And it's really you sitting around and clicking prompts and getting it more and more detailed, especially with these algorithms that comes out to it. Chatbot specialist today is another new job. These are the people that will write that marketing copy, will do this and that, cross over. You get people to do that, and you're training them for that. These are things they're looking. The starting job price for a chatbot specialist, brand new, 200,000 US dollars. So you become an expert. This is where you look on for your employees to show the benefit, because without you, they're not getting there. And nobody wants to send people out for training or anything else. And you have to show that. So impact of learning is what you need to think about, because that can show you the actual metrics to say, okay, here's how I validate, and here's how I increased your revenue. Because everything, as Dor says, is it has to show cash flow. And you can do that. You know, L&D is not a money drain, which way too many C execs think. It can be a profitable money to generate cash flow, for that. So that's what you should be looking upon.
So that's, one last question. And I'd like for you to give us some tips. We're all, I think, in this room, L&D specialists, maybe instructional designers or training managers. Let's invest 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week in getting us better, in reskilling ourselves. What would I do with this? Let's say 1 hour a week for my own training to stay relevant, to stay ahead in L&D. What would I study, or what should I invest this time in?
You're going to hear the word again.
Read your blog. That's the...
Yeah, read my blog and my brand new newsletter I'm launching with around generative AI. You can sign up for free starting in late May. When I get back to the States. But no, I think that you need to understand the various terminology around generative AI. You need to know all the different kinds. You need to know what a learning language model is. You need to know, you don't have to go in depth with neural networks and deep learning. You don't need that. But you need to understand these. You need to understand the ethical concerns, the privacy concerns, the plagiarism potential concerns. You have to recognize, again, that your employees are going to be utilizing this. And so you have to look upon it that you have to become the expert within your company to do that. And it's going to be tough. If you don't know really technology, it's okay. You can just read and learn about this stuff, and don't look at 2 pages of Google. Drive further in. And I know some people are typing it in on Bard, which, by the way, and a Google employee called it a pathological liar. Right before they launched it, Google didn't care. And if you go into the chat thing, and you type, you can get this information from a variety of sources. So I would say all around that. I would also look at something called digital twins, which I think can have a major impact if it's done correctly. It does use generative AI, but I think it could be a monumental game changer for learning technology, learning and development. I think it can be a game changer for creating course and content development for instructional designers. I mean, you could know nothing and be able to do, at least if you have digital twins in there, which is basically, I can replicate a human, right? And then I can go, today, they can replicate a human being, and they can look at them and do tests for various type of medications, and then they can see what those results will be based on generative AI. So now I'm not having to inject you these kind of things. And think what you could do with your learners. You can put them in that real life scenario, put out a variety of scenarios, see how it impacts, see the data before you actually implement it. So these are the kinds of things that you have to look upon. Technology is not, all technology does not mean that it's going to go and work for learning. Anybody who's an early adopter like myself has plenty of these things that nobody ever picked up. I don't think VR is I've never believed that was the future. You got to buy headsets, and the new thing is XR, which used to be called mixed reality. I think there's going to be a big demand. If you're in a large company, they're going to probably want XR. You got to buy headsets. So then you have to understand the moment somebody trips, they're going to sue you. You're going to have workers' comp, right? It's going to go through. There's consequences to these things. And so you have to recognize to be on the forefront. And that's not something we're used to doing. We're not looking at that. And I want everybody to kind of say when they leave today, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to start learning about generative AI. I'm going to start looking at the different products that are out there and could they be applied to that? And I'm going to become the knowledge expert around this. And don't rely on IT because these people don't necessarily even know what's going on. And really, they don't. And who wants them touching your learning? You got to be kidding me. So you have to be these kind of things and start to go out there and start to research it. I'm going to be just last point here, Australia. That workforce thing came out of some study I found in there. It's not like I looked for studies from Australia, but nevertheless it did. The other one I remember was a study done. It was in Australia and some, thing when I was working on a doctorate. And it said the future is this thing called e-learning. And they went into it and nobody had ever talked about it. And the moment I saw that, I was like, epiphany, they're correct. So that's how you have to think about that and look at these new kind of things that's going to impact. And that's what I would do, starting when you go home today. Thank you.
Thank you.